Testing.
Good evening. Today is Monday, July 15th, 2024. We are at the Green Ladle and we'll call this meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We will start school committee member introductions with Counselor Scott Harriman.
Scott Harriman, City Council Representative to the School Committee.
Donna Gallant, Ward 7.
Craig Charpentier, Ward 4.
Elizabeth Eames, Ward 3.
Janet Bowden, Ward 2.
Phoenix McLaughlin, Ward 1.
Megan Parks at large.
Jake Langley, Superintendent.
Karen Paquette, Assistant Superintendent.
Our wards 5 and 6 are excused absent this evening. Agenda item number 3 is to receive and potentially vote on the nomination for Troy Boughton for the special ed assistant principal position for the district.
So we have a series of positions. Come on up, Chris. Yeah, we have a series of positions tonight. It's been a while since we've approved personnel, so we'll have a handful of things tonight. As a reminder, we are working to build programming to have more students return to our schools, and some of these positions are part of that. And Director Crafts will help introduce.
Hi. Good evening. So Troy Boughton is the first person up. I don't know if you want to come up here or wait for me to introduce you. So this is Troy Boughton. I've worked with Troy for a long time. We worked together at the high school. He's been in the district since 2012. He was a special education teacher for a long time, then a regular ed teacher. He was getting his special education master's at the same time that he became a regular ed teacher, finished it through, and then volunteered to do some extra work for me when we were short as far as case management goes at the high school. Last year, he picked up IEP coordinator position at the high school and helped out there when they were short staffed. And then we had a need at McMahon for day treatment, and Troy stepped up and filled in as the interim day treatment administrator and did a great job. He's very confident and he's ready for this role. And so we're here to hopefully get him nominated to continue on.
And I
don't know, did you want to vote first or have him speak? I know this is.
Do you want to speak before or after it's official?
Usually, yes, that's. Go now?
Well, I mean, either way, but I did want to just take a minute first, thank Jake and Kirsten. I also want to thank Anna and Michelle for, instilling their confidence in me to step into this role. It has really been a privilege and a pleasure to serve Lewiston Public Schools for as long as I have in the population that we serve. So regardless of how you vote, those are my sentiments. Just a couple of things which I've seen Troy in numerous capacities, from our Star Academy when that first started up, working with students that were taking a different pathway, and really just navigating and adapting to whatever situation he was put in and finding a way to relate with the kids, find success, and hold high expectations. So we're excited about this nominee for sure.
Any discussion from the committee or a motion? Member Bowden?
Thank you. First, I just want to say it sounds like you're very reliable and dependable, and that's great qualities to have. So thank you for stepping up again for such a big role. And I'd like to make the motion to approve Troy Boughton for the special ed assistant principal position.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Want to say the next one or?
All right.
Yeah, no problem.
To receive and potentially vote on the nomination for Heidi Lamprin for the special education assistant principal position for McMahon Elementary.
Awesome. Heidi, do you want to come up? This is Heidi Lamprin. She is also a longtime employee of the district, started working at McMahon Elementary School in 2008. She was a BHP for day treatment for a very long time and then turned into the teacher role for day treatment for a really long time. And then tried the resource room for a couple of years, did a great job. And then when we had a need that needed to be filled this year, she stepped into the IEP coordinator role, interim, did a great job. And so now we're at the point where she is ready to be nominated for the IEP, I'm not sorry, IEP, the assistant principal for special education at McMahon Elementary School. So this is Heidi. I don't know if you want to speak.
Did you want to speak?
Thank you. I am very honored to be able to take in on a leadership role in our special ed department. I've been very committed to our special education students and families in the district. So I'm very excited to be in a leadership role now.
Similar to Troy, Heidi has worn many hats and been successful in engaging people and really following through on tasks, which is something that this role desperately needs. So we're excited should she be approved.
Discussion or motion from the committee? Member Charpentier?
Thank you. I've personally known Heidi for 30 plus years or so. This is a person I can personally vouch for with a lot of integrity, a lot of character, is a brilliant asset to our community in this role. And I will definitely go ahead and be proud to give my nomination for Heidi for this position.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Seconded by member Bowden. Any further discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next is to receive and potentially vote on the nomination for Sean Winstead for the special education assistant principal position at Connors.
So this is a new face to LPS, but not to me. This is Sean Winstead. He currently works for ALTC, which is one of our special purpose private schools. He has started out as a substitute teacher at St. Dom's after graduating from college in 2015, then moved on to becoming I think it was a BHP or an ed tech in Lisbon, and then moved to ALTC where he's been for 7 years. He is doing a lot there and he's going to be surely missed. I met Sean this past year when he was getting his master's in educational leadership and he has aspirations of being a special education director. So I was his mentor. And through that experience, I realized how amazing he was and how awesome he will be for Lewiston Public Schools. And so we're just really lucky to have him and everything that he's going to bring to this district. So.
I just want to say thank you all for considering me. And while I haven't worked for Lewiston, I have seen a lot of you guys through the outplacement field, and it has been fantastic. It's kind of why I sought this position out. I've seen Lewiston through their hard times. I've seen them through their triumphs, and I really want to be part of that.
Great,
And I
thank
will
you.
mention too, for part of his internship, he had to watch some of the school committee meetings. So he's seeing you all.
I'm sorry.
And we have debriefed them. So
Hopefully it was the good ones. Is there any discussion? Member Eames?
Well, I'm happy to see that the movement from the special purpose private schools to us is begun. And let's hope you can bring along some of your former colleagues. So yes, this is wonderful. Thank you.
Member Bowden?
Thanks. I just wanted to say welcome to public school, Sean. And I will make the nomination to approve him as the special education assistant principal at Connors Elementary.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Counselor Harriman. Further discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Welcome and congratulations.
Thanks, Jeff.
Agenda item number 6 is to receive and potentially vote on the nomination for April Karen for the Climb Teaching and Learning Director position.
So Climb, we haven't, through the budget process and stuff, I know we haven't had a lot of follow-up on how the development of the new programming is going, but Climb is actually what we're calling the new programming at the McMahon wing. It stands for Cultivating Learner Independence Through a Multidisciplinary Blueprint, in case that question came up. And we've hired two fantastic longtime employees or looking to hire of LPS to help run these programs. So this is April Karen. April comes to us. Well, she started out after college at Margaret Murphy and then moved to LPS in 2007 to become a BHP. She moved into a teacher role, I believe, in functional life skills for a very long time, and then was a special education supervisor / assistant principal, and then became just the assistant principal for the last several years at Farwell. She has expressed interest in coming back to special education and has aspirations to look at preschool programming, which we know is coming down the line. She has a lot of experience and will be a great fit for our new programming. So, April.
I just want to say Farwell has been my family for the past 17 years. It has given me great opportunities in the Lewiston public school system, and I look forward to continuing to grow.
Thank you. Any discussion or motion from the committee? Member Bowden?
I'll make the motion to approve April for the Climb Teaching and Learning Director position.
No, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Congratulations.
Next. Oh, one more.
Which one? That's what I just, oh, geez, I checked that off. To receive, I'm a mess tonight, I apologize. To receive and potentially vote on the nomination for Katherine Kosan for lead BCBA district-wide to climb multidisciplinary director position.
Katie Colasante. She is currently the lead BCBA for the district. She is amazing and does a ton of things, and all the things she does is crazy. And myself and Anna and Michelle, my two assistants, are like, how are we going to fill this position? But she will also do a great job in climb. She is amazing and has really helped me try to develop what it could look like. She has more experience in special purpose private school development than me. So we have built a program that we're proud of. Katie has been in Lewiston since 2014. She started as a BHP, no, sorry, you weren't a BHP here. She was a BHP in a different district. She was a resource room teacher here at Longley, moved to a RISE position, and then was a BCBA, and then became the BCBA supervisor. So she is fantastic. So if you want to speak.
I'm just extremely grateful for this potential opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to the impact that we can make on our current students and on students who are currently outplaced, bringing them back home to Lewiston. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion or conversation?
Just a quick question. What does BCBA stand for?
It stands for Board Certified Behavior Analyst. So we, in short, look at socially significant behavior, what behavior is interfering with any individual being able to access their community, whether that be school or local community, and look at teaching a replacement behavior so that they can access the community better in a more functional way.
Okay, thank you. And I'll go ahead and make the nomination for Katherine Kosan for the Climb Multidisciplinary Director position.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Gallant. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations.
All for me?
You're good. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Kirsten.
Agenda item number 8 is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like set aside?
I just have a question about the for the resignations portion. Do we get exit interview information, and how can we learn more about that?
Yeah, we offer exit interviews by way of survey and also meetings if they wish. And we do have a lot of data.
Okay, I
around
might
that.
follow up on that then. Thank you.
Member Bowden?
Thank you. So it's more of a statement / question, but it was great to see so many positions being filled. I love to see that. I'm just curious, like if you don't have to know right now off the top of your head, but if you could get us kind of where we're at as far as our vacancies, because that was like probably one of the biggest personnel reports I've seen since I've been on the school committee. So it was really awesome to
178 pages.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely get you more detail for our upcoming meeting about where we're at with hiring. Things definitely feel healthier as far as in comparison to the last couple of years. So
So no one wanted anything set aside. The consent agenda is adopted. Agenda item number 9 is the public input. Members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now and on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff, personnel matters, or a student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comments shall be directed to the school committee and be brief, not repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Before starting, please state your name, address, and affiliation to LPS. And I bought a timer so we could have a visual and audio alert when the 3 minutes is up, but I forgot to bring it tonight. So moving forward, we will have an actual timer for our public comment. But if anyone would like to speak, please come to the podium.
Matthew Agron, Ward 4. I would like to see the school system lay out a 5-year plan, including how many staff, mobile classrooms if we're going to need them, that we will need to meet the goals of LPS going forward. This will help next year and the following years as we look at the budget. And we saw how challenging it was to pass a budget this year. With all the new things coming in, it's going to be more challenging. The special ed department alone is going to raise the number of staff you need. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on a non-agenda item? Seeing no one, we will move on to agenda item number 10 to receive a presentation on the Dream Project messaging boards for elementary schools from the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ava Golder. I am the chair of the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council. And today we really appreciate this opportunity to make a presentation to our wonderful LPS school committee. And this year, our youth council term ran from July 2023 to July 2024. And our large project was an initiative we entitled the Dream Project. And it is a multi-phase project to encourage local youth to develop goals, aspirations, and dreams for their future. The Dream Project was born after members expressed concern that some community youth face challenges that make the future seem bleak. And we wanted youth to know that they weren't alone in this world and they have the value. And some things that we did are:
we initially sent out an online survey to middle school and high school students with permission of the school superintendent to get feedback from students as their passions for the future, concerns, support systems, etc. We learned that students are concerned about finances and are nervous about whether they can achieve what they'd like to do.
So during this, we reached out to school personnel, and over 100 Lewiston Public School employees volunteered to wear a Dream Project pin designed by LYAC member Sadia. And so that students will know that they are willing to talk with them on school premises about their goals, aspirations, dreams, and hopes for the future.
We held a community forum so that attendees could hear from local professionals who had a dream and have been successful. At that event, we also gave our positive affirmation pens. We have some for you today.
We also posted on social media posts that highlighted our views and the true meaning of success. We wanted the youth to know that it is important that their goals and their future choices bring them joy and contentment.
We also designed some bumper stickers and have some for you all today to remind all ages that they can make their dreams a reality.
On a separate note, we also held a community forum to provide a better understanding of substance use disorder and recovery, as we are concerned about youth and adults who are struggling.
Before our tenure ends, however, we wanted to return to the Dream Project to do something for elementary age children. So we recently got creative and made some posters and framed them for each of the elementary schools, decorating them with the words of affirmation and our bumper sticker. As time was running short before the school ended, we would appreciate you getting these to Lewiston elementary schools.
They're here.
We can definitely do that. Daddy, come on over and get a good picture.
They all each have sort of like little messages on them to encourage the really young youth about their future and that they have a future and goals for it. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. Ava. Yeah. They fall apart, be careful. The frame keeps falling off. Thank you all for the two that are here and for the whole group as a whole. Thank you for the work that you've been doing. It's definitely appreciated and needed in the community. Thank you. Thank you, Dottie. Agenda item number 11 is to receive and potentially vote on LHS field trip request to CMCC for July 22nd, 2024. And it looks like Superintendent Lewis will present.
Yeah, so this is brought forth by Kate Chase, who is the aspirations coordinator at the high school, but she's out of town tonight, so I said I would step in. This year it is the location is Central Maine Community College. Usually it's Eastern Maine Community College in Bangor. They'll be learning how to sign up for college classes, taking career inventory tests, learning about the aspects of a college campus, and doing team building within their own cohort and with other schools. So this is a pretty straightforward thing that we've done year after year. The funding and the locations dictate where we end up. So this is the package that Kate was able to put together. There are two different dates. There's the July 22nd, and then the next one is July 29th. So it's similar trip, but two different dates.
Can we vote on them together, even though they're separate agenda items?
I think that you could, but it's up to the committee.
Yep, Member Glant.
Are these two different groups or are they the same group going to each date?
Let me check to make sure. I think it's two different groups, but I want to make
I
sure.
think it's 11th graders and 12th graders on 2 different days. The 12th graders are 2 nights and the 11th graders are 1 night.
Yes, that is my recollection. I just wanted to pull it up.
Member Bowden.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the field trip request for July 22nd, as well as the field trip request for July 29th.
Is there a second? Seconded by Member Eames. Any further discussion? All in favor? Is unanimous. Did you want to say anything about the second one's the exact same thing? Just a different time period?
Same thing, different group of kids and different time frame.
Okay.
It's 2 nights.
All right, agenda item number 13 is to receive an update on grants, including CTE equipment submission and innovative funds. That will be presented. Also by Superintendent Leyland.
Sorry, I was trying to pull up that request form at the same time. So just doing a quick update, we've mentioned in the past that the state had set aside some funds to do some equipment at the Career and Technical Education Center, but you have to apply for them. This one is a little bit unique in that the amount of money available could require bonding. And so it's like a reimbursement model that's more consequential in districts that are smaller than us. It's something I think we can absorb. But just to give you an idea of some things that they looked at, improving their sawdust collection system, the electrical panels and system in the hard trade shops is very obsolete. If it goes down, we actually don't know if we can get parts to replace them. That's how old that system is. An electronic vehicle full module. So it's an EV car that can be disassembled and put back together. And it's kind of a learning module for the kids, but my understanding is it's a full, car-sized module, not something that's small or computer-based. And there was some other equipment-based things there, all that might be approved by this grant submittal. They could approve parts of it or none of it. Just want to keep you posted that we have in fact applied. The other one is we've worked with Tree Street and with Julia Sleeper, who's sitting in the back corner. I don't know if she wants to come up to say anything, but you all know this because we do this on an annual basis where we're trying to learn from what we did and see how we do it differently to adjust and adapt to help kids. And one of the things that we're finding some success in, and they're going to talk about more in the next item, at the middle school to do things more proactive, as we've all talked about. We sought out some funding to try to, instead of funding a specific thing, to fund an effort around being innovative. And so funding to do the things that we create, but without saying, we're gonna do exactly this, this, and this. What we're saying is we're looking to make a difference in kids' lives, doing things that we might not have ever done before, using the knowledge that we carry with us. And we got that funding. And so we're still working out the details. I'll get you a final amount, but this could be in the hundreds of thousands that will help provide and kind of bring supports into schools that has a proactive, specific approach connected to things like root ed, things we've learned at Next Step, what have you. So we'll say more about it in the next item, but an update on that funding. We have one more piece of the conversation to have because some of the funding was built around them looking at what our level of need was based on our budget. And until we had a budget, we couldn't talk about need as specifically as we wanted to. So more to come very soon.
Member Bowden?
Hi, could you go back to the CTE equipment submission? Did you say that we applied for a grant that could turn into us having to fund it? Is that what I just understood? Like
So
a bond?
It's a request for a proposal, if you will, like all the grants are. But this one has, because of the way the funding's coming in, it could require a vote from the community, but it's reimbursed.
Okay.
So we don't have to accept it. But if we are awarded, we would share the next steps and then go through that process. I think for smaller districts, when you're asking for, $100,000 electric upgrade, districts that are smaller than us can't work that into their budget cycle. So they put a bonding piece to it. We did ask clarifying questions and it was more or less submit and we'll work out the details if you're awarded. And if we're awarded, but the details don't fit us, we'll bring it back to you. Then we can make a decision from there.
Okay, awesome.
But it is unique, and I'm glad you asked the question because Director Callahan and I asked numerous follow-up questions to say we've never seen an RFA like this where you ask us, me specifically, to sign off that this may require bonding, depending on how the funding comes. And as long as it's may, we'll apply. And then if it comes back as something we're not interested in, then we would have to make that decision. But it may be back before you if it has to go through any kind of. Sometimes the bonding requires a local vote, which could be put in like November or whenever they decide. But it's all reimbursed, which is why I asked the question, like, why are you asking us to bond if it's reimbursed? But
no, I'm glad to hear that. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm a huge supporter of our, technical programs and, giving them any help that we can, but we also, I just want to make sure after the budget process we just went through that we're being completely transparent. And if it's something that we need to absorb, I feel like the community needs to have a say in that and needs to have a heads up on that. So I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure that was completely transparent. So I appreciate that.
yeah, and I'm glad, like I said, I'm glad you asked because it is unique in that it does have the bonding language to it, but it is reimbursed. So for Rob and I and Bill actually to all kind of perk up and ask the same question after reading the language, it meant that it was unique in itself. So we'll keep you posted.
Member Eames?
Reimbursed in full. It's not like matching. It's
My understanding was it was it 70%, Bill? Oh, he's coming.
So my understanding is it's similar to, I don't know if you remember the school renovation revolving funds that we applied for in previous years, and that was a bonded amount. And then we have to pay back 30%. The state would pay back 70. The way that I understand the LRTs, or excuse me, the CTE money is working, and when they put this out, is that it would be 100% reimbursed for equipment or infrastructure. This grant, why there was equipment pieces in there is because, or RFP, was because they wanted more equipment for CTE. They heard from CTE centers there's more equipment, but we had two kind of equipment / infrastructure projects, that dust collection and the electrical system, that we felt really adamant that we needed to apply for these funds. So my understanding is it would be 100% reimbursable, but there potentially is a bond with it.
Any further discussion? You don't need a vote from us. Okay. Agenda item number 14 is to receive an update on proactive efforts with middle school students.
So this is middle and could spill into high school because we're continuing to work on that. But if Philip, Amanda, and Julia could come up, I have a slide I'm going to put up that they shared. And this is really just to share where we're at, trying to do some of the things that we've talked about in the past, but give you an opportunity to ask questions or make suggestions at the same time. 1 second.
Thanks, Amanda. Hi, everybody. Great to see you all again. So we are going to dive deeper into specifically some of our middle school initiatives that we're really excited about this year. But just as a recall, before we do that, I thought it would maybe be helpful to walk back through, as a lot of people know, like Tree Street has done a number of co-created projects, initiatives, pilots over the years to support kids and sort of co-create innovations that we can sort of try and do the best we can to build around some of our most vulnerable youth. And going all the way back to original Longley Leaders, like way back in the day, was our sort of initial pilot. And then back when Jake was at the middle school, we did our first middle school collaboration. A lot of you guys remember Spencer Trailer. He was facilitating lunch circles, which eventually led to a lot of the research that then led to the creation of Next Step, original pilot year, which now is not so piloty as it's getting older, which then eventually led to piloting a Rooted type of model 2 years ago, which you guys are more than familiar with, Rooted. And then this year, we're really excited around some of the ideas that we're going to be doing mostly directly with the middle school, but also that we're trying out with the high school. So these models are sort of built off of the needs that we're seeing in the schools, but also off of years of experience in what's called the branches model at Tree Street, which has been one of our staple models from programming from the beginning. And branches stands for Becoming Responsible Adults and Cultivating Higher Education Success. And so it's about how do we get students to make a self-conscious choice about their futures and to engage in their educations, regardless of the direction that they choose to go. But and so with that, we've forever had a branches room at Tree Street, and we're going to be talking a little bit about the idea of creating some branches rooms or spaces at both the high school and piloting that type of a model to support youth. But in particular, we're doing sort of some iterations on that, in particular at the middle school, and also some iterations both at Tree Street to support some proactive support for in particular, our middle school friends. So with that, I will.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Amanda Bryant, principal at the middle school. For those of you who don't know me, I think you all do, though. So this comes from our experiences over the past several years, and I feel like we just keep getting bigger and better, and we know a little bit more about what our students need each time. And when I come for student disciplinary meetings, we are able, as a committee, sort of identify some pieces that maybe retroactively we could have done to support some students proactively. So our purpose in doing this is to provide a proactive but also responsive for kids who show us that they need an additional space that would support them. Maybe they're experiencing difficulties learning in their classroom environment or on their team in their team environment, experiencing difficulties with adult to peer interactions or relationships. They might need a little bit more time to develop their social emotional skills, and they might need more depth in conversations around identity. So if we think about some of the kids who have not been extremely successful, those are the kids that we really want to make sure that collaboratively we're working together so that we can give them the best education possible. We're looking at, and just to be clear, we're not asking for additional staff. These are already staff members that we have. We're just looking at shifting our resources to do the things that we feel like our students need. So we want to have so the Next Step program currently has 4 staff members slated for the middle school students. 2 of those staff members would come and work in-house at the middle school, and then 2 of them would stay at Longley and work a little bit more with Philip, and be like the intervention model and be an out of house model. Philip will talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. The supervision, we've talked a lot about what the supervision looks like. It would be the three of us, Julia and Philip, would meet weekly. They would have check-ins with staff to make sure that they're getting the support they need. And Philip and I would work on, we would do the classroom observations and be the supervisors of the staff members. They would engage in LMS professional development and operations, which would be led by me and or my staff, the middle school staff. We would have biweekly design meetings so that we can continue looking at this model, what's working, what's not working. We envision that the programming model would be students would receive their general instruction, their tier 1 instruction, hopefully in their gen ed classroom. At that point, if they're having some social emotional needs that need to be met, that's when they would go to their branches room and get a little bit more support in a smaller environment. That's one way it might work. But we're looking at drop-ins support for targeted identified groups of students. So we do this screener 3 times a year. It's called SRSS. It's a student risk screener. Teachers do it. And it gives us a score on students internalizing risk and they're externalizing risk, not to get too, discussing data right now, but we plan to use that piece of data so that we can identify students who really need the extra support. They'll have daily and weekly group meetings, and then because we're meeting bi-weekly, we will be able to add additional programming in collaboration with the design team. So that would be like the first level of support that we want to give kids. If students are still showing us, and we haven't completely identified what that might look like, but if they're still showing us that that model is not working for them, then that's when we would do a more intensive out of house model that Philip will talk about.
Yeah, and again, we're still designing these things, but next step with the Dreamchasers pilot that we did last year and a couple of different iterations with middle school students since we started that in 2021 has really benefited from using the Tree Street space and the supports there, meeting kids where they're at, trying to figure out what are the needs at a level that aren't necessarily showing up in an IEP meeting or in a disciplinary meeting per se. So we're taking, again, if you look at those 4 teachers that were running Next Step middle school programming out of Longley last year, 2 being at LMS, other 2 would actually primarily be at Tree Street, but 1 would sort of act as what we call a conduit, really helping figure out how to do that transition really smoothly, so that the student, their family, everyone is on board with what we're going to try for a defined period of time. And we've had a lot of success with this sort of approach called pivot or persevere, where we can set goals with the student and then we can take a look at those goals and decide, like, do we need to pivot what we're trying? Or are we almost there? We just need to persevere with this. So using types of those strategies is how we're looking at doing that intervention work. And again, that's when the level of need is not being met by that sort of more drop-in weekly support at LMS.
And some of this is coming, well, a lot of this is coming from things that we've learned. So you've seen the success of the root ed model for the kids who are willing to engage. And so the problem with that is usually that is built around big consequence. And we feel like, or Amanda Bryant feels like, we kind of saw this coming. We've guided, we've coached, we've supported, and then the thing happens. And people are worried about the next thing, but was it enough to bring to the school committee? And this constant kind of rub between, are we doing right by the kid? Are we providing the right support? So we just, giving it time without repairing anything and making sure they're prepared and then putting them back in the environment. It's always been a concern of ours. So with the root ed model, we found is you put very specific criteria around this, and the students will pivot or persevere. And for those willing to engage, and middle school kids can choose to engage and get themselves back on the right track. But the other thing we've learned is through the community connection is kids aren't always going to sit in front of us at school and say, my brother was incarcerated last weekend, or I saw somebody hit my mom, or I know this family and there's nothing wrong with this kid. What's going on with him? So sometimes that community connection, or a lot of times that community information can feed back into a kid situation, but schools don't always become the place where that is shared. So we're trying to pair the community knowledge through Tree Street Youth, our knowledge through the school perspective, and trying to get ahead of these things. So if people are feeling like, whether it's the SRSS screener or just their intuition of this is not going well, we see all the writing on the wall. What else do we have? Instead of waiting for big consequence, which might still happen for some kids, this could be a way to say, you know, listen, you're in middle school, and what we know about middle school kids is when they go to high school unprepared, they struggle to be successful. So if we can catch more of these kids with this kind of platform, we really believe it'll make a difference in their 9 through 12 career, and also in the community and how they represent their homes and develop more pride in themselves and what they want to be. Tying to the prior item, there's funding to help do this innovative work. So from a teacher perspective, we already had the 2 teachers at Next Step. So this is a peel off from that. One of the problems we saw last year is we did trimesters and we rotated kids, and we saw based on interest. So you had a pocket of kids going for a third of the year. And what we found is a third or half of those kids or more wanted to just go back. The problem was that was at Next Step at Longley. So their commitment to the middle school was, and I like this Next Step model better, but I'm not getting my middle school academics and experience to the same level. I'm not integrated. So it was like helping kids become better people, but kind of unintentionally separating them from their class. And so we're looking to innovate and try to find ways to keep the kids engaged in school wherever possible. The other layer to this too, and it's more edu speak, and I apologize, but we have to have qualified teachers to provide certain programming to be within the law to do this work. And so we started that with Root Ed, with Keenan being a certified teacher, but this model also uses certified staff that are ours. So we can have a teacher of record, you can still do good work, you can still provide instruction, multilingual resources, special ed where needed, and try to build that model for a group of kids to just, again, try to keep them engaged in school, keep them moving forward, but get them to, I don't know if I use the right term here, actualize their own, you know, their education is about them and what they want to become in life, and how to get them to see that and grab that and move forward. So sorry if I.
Could you switch to the next slide? I just wanted to highlight a really dynamic team that we built here. The blue folks, Marie and Fernanda, would work out of LMS. Folks in green, Nick and Kira, would be that intervention model. And then Bonnie, Decca, Isaac, and Fiki are the branches team that would sort of float and support across multiple places, who are all employed by Tree.
by me.
Yeah.
So that would also, sorry.
Yeah.
So that would also be added resources that, again, like flow through Tree Street, but they will be sort of cross district in any of the branches spaces, like providing that support, both at the middle school, at the high school space, at Next Step, where we do similar branches type models, as well as the branches room after school, which gives kids sort of that extension into the community of sort of like familiar faces, but also someone they'll see at school. And it's also been something that even just proactively this summer, as we've been like kind of like sourcing from kids, like ideas and things, which is all typically a part of how we design these things with no promises, but we get them to like dream with us. A lot of the kids who are really nervous about going to the high school, when they're like starting to think through the concept of having like someone like a Bonnie or a Deca who they love and see it after school all the time, but potentially being able to see them at school, or when they're having a hard time, be able to like pull on, like, could you like connect me with Keenan? Like everyone's favorite. But those types of things, like it will create sort of this continuum of care kind of across all the various schools, is our hope that we can also proactively, again, get ahead of some of the situations and the needs that we know all really exist, especially for our middle school friends. So
I know the school committee's talked over time about what are proactive ways we can try to get ahead of this. And so this again is a design step at that effort, and just wanted to share where we were at with you and see if you had thoughts, questions.
Member Bowden?
Thank you. So I appreciate that we're, trying to find a way to help our students. I do have a couple questions though. I I guess first I'll start with that last slide you just showed in the folks up there. What qualifications do they have and like what sort of vetting process is happening before they enter our schools? Because I know we've had some issues with this in the past, and I just want to make sure that we're bringing in like qualified people to be doing the work that they're doing.
Yeah, so the staff that are ours are, they've had background checks. Because they work for Lewiston Public Schools.
Okay,
So
I
the
understood they
first-
work
the-
for Tree Street.
The first group on the left there was a Lewiston Public School staff. And then Julia, go ahead.
Yeah,
She
and
does-
so we follow a similar background check and fingerprinting type of structure, similar to the schools. Actually, most of these individuals have either worked in schools previously or have done kind of direct work with schools in their whatever capacities, but we use a similar vetting process to that parallels schools levels of vetting. In addition, I think it's also important to just, you asked about sort of like their backgrounds and qualifications. Well, I don't have them up here, but each of the individuals have sort of come to us in kind of from different pathways and different walkways, or ways of life that have landed them at Tree Street. And I'm happy to like share any other background information. But like Fiki and Isaac, the two on the bottom in the pink. Oh, I can move this. There they are. So those guys are recent grads of Bates just this past year. Both of them were very active, involved in the schools. Fiki actually worked in the aspirations lab for quite a bit of time last year. Isaac he's been basically all over Lewiston Public Schools for the past 4 years, very engaged and has been an active volunteer with Tree Street over the years. Bonnie and Decca. So Bonnie graduated from Bowdoin a couple of years back. Decca just moved up here from Portland a few years ago. She was part of the inspiration for this. She had gone to school at Deering and was part of a model in-house there. I think it was, I don't want to speak out of turn. I believe it was the Let's Get Ready program down there that they had. And that's when she was like, why don't we have like branches in the schools? And that's when we were like, well, actually, that's been a dream for quite some time to be able. So a lot of there's lived experience, but there's also like significant sort of higher ed and aspiration and just really work around community-based youth development skills. And then obviously all the other 4 are all certified teachers like through the district's process. But again, I'm happy to share any other information that anyone would want, but it's an important and good question.
And my other question was back on the first slide where it kind of outlines the purpose up at the top. I'm just curious, like, what do you mean by we need to have more in-depth conversations around identity? Is that a responsibility of the school to do? Because it just kind of seems like it would be out of our lane. We're, an education system, not necessarily. I'm just concerned that we're going to create more confusion than answers with something like that. So I just wanted to know if someone could talk more about that, please.
So I think identity is a context that's used in lots of realms right now. This is middle school students have no idea what they want to be when they grow up. And this is that context. This is the context of what do you want to do with yourself? Well, let's go. Like you're at the age, it is time, no more just bebopping around between different friend groups acting like the class clown or whatever. But owning your own experience in education and moving forward. It's not gender identity affiliated from that perspective.
Member McLaughlin?
Yeah, just to help me understand what exactly this would be doing, would you mind sharing just a hypothetical example of a student and, what maybe they're having issues with and how they're identified to participate in this, and then what they do, and then how you know if they're done with it and all good, and how that compares to what you've been doing previously and how that would differ? That would really help me a lot.
Okay.
Just in terms of how Next Step middle schoolers ended up with us, it was often through sort of like a self-select. We'd sort of put out the word and it kind of was a mix. We often say, there's students that want to try school differently. There's students that want more social emotional support, and there's students that want more academic support. And it doesn't break down a third, but generally fits in one of those camps. One of the things we noticed, Jake alluded to this earlier, is that we ended up having a cohort that just kind of stuck with us the whole time. And so the need at Lewiston Middle School from working with Amanda is bigger than that. So I think we're designing, we know sort of the factors that we want to look at. We're going to look at that SRSS screener. We're going to look at attendance data. We're going to look at NWA data, and all of that correlates to what Lewiston Middle School's goals are. So it's going to be very aligned with their effort. And I think also what I appreciate about this effort is when students went to Next Step, they became like a Next Step student, and it was hard for them to keep that LMS identity. And our work to go younger is really to help kids navigate school better. Then when we're looking at the high school age group, we're really talking about how do we help kids navigate like post-high school better? Because a lot of those kids are getting their final graduation credits at Next Step and then walking in Lewiston High School graduation. But the effort, we see, you know, situations that were like, we can definitely work with this kid, but where did this go wrong, or where did this start to go off the tracks? And I think that's what this effort is supposed to. So I'm giving you a little bit macro because I wouldn't say we've come up with every detail, but those types of objective measures are what we're looking at to try to figure out.
Just one brief like anecdote of like an example of this is, so we have a student that's been coming to say branches after school for a while, and it was a Next Step student. So it's a student we know regularly. But as an example, this is a student who essentially would deflect or not participate in her speech therapy work that was deemed appropriate and needed. Her literacy levels were relatively low, especially for her age. And so in having conversations in that setting, it happened to be after school because that was sort of the access point. But she really liked connecting with Bonnie, one of the staffers, and he loves reading. And in kind of a flippant way, she's like, well, I don't like reading, like, sort of thing. And when he was like, well, what do you mean? You have to love reading, like, because he's really excited about literacy and reading. Really excited. But all that to be said is in this dialogue and in this series of conversations, it basically revealed that she was more self-conscious about like her ability to read at her level. And they started going right back to like basics. He's like, well, if you want to improve, you have to practice and you have to do these things. And it really motivated her, even to the point where she started to engage in more of her specialized instruction that, as a young emergent teenager, she was not thinking she needed or why she would do that. So a lot of it is about like giving an alternate perspective that isn't always, while these will be teachers and educators, but it is about like that skill building piece, or that getting under the surface a little bit more as to why. And again, you guys have the most familiarity with Rooted, but I would argue like that's that type of work. Even like, why do you keep kind of blowing up that relationship with that one teacher when you're actually telling us you do like them? But what's that really about? Oh, I'm afraid to actually excel in this because my friends might make fun of me, or I don't know if I'm a leader, I'm insecure about such and such, or like, I really do have some things going on at home, and like I want my teacher to understand that, but I don't know when I'm supposed to tell them that. Like, so so there's many a circumstance. But what we've learned, and as Tree Street has grown and being a thought leader in particular beyond just Lewiston but across the state, this concept of community-based youth development, which is what we do. There's a word for it. But what we kind of do is it can kind of sometimes be that water that floods in a little bit or kind of fills in those pieces. And so the idea of having those spaces more readily kind of available to kids, or when they need a moment, it kind of prevents them from having to go even bigger in order to draw those conversations, which is what we oftentimes see happen, because they need this conversation. They need a conversation with Amanda or a dean or someone like that. But right now, the access point for a lot of those oftentimes comes after something negative happens. It's just the way it's structured, but we can proactively evolve that.
Right. Like if you think of the middle school students that you've seen here over the past couple of years, I could have a conversation with Julia about every one of those students proactively. I could have had with Julia and Philip and talked about what could we do to support this student to prevent anything from becoming bigger. But that forum hadn't really been there. So the other thing, 2 years ago, when we did Next Step, all of our students, the middle school students, were bused to Longley and went home from Longley. So there was a definite separation. Last year, we tried a model where they started their day at the middle school, but then literally an announcement would come on, would Dreamchaser students come to the lobby because their bus was there to take them. So there was still very much your students and my students or our students. And that's not the case at all. They're our students. They're middle school students. They need to experience dances, extracurricular activities, be available for sports if that's what they want to do. So this would bring them back or keep them, I should say, not necessarily bring them back, but bring the program back in and keep them at the middle school so they can learn the skills, but also have the opportunity to practice the skills in the big setting, in the big middle school as appropriate.
I think I want to add too for public consumption, because the committee has seen those meetings and those are executive sessions and they're confidential because they're student matters. But we've also seen students return from Rooted having met higher expectations than what they were meeting before. So I think that's the other caveat I want to put in here is some of the work that happens or a goal of the work that happens is higher expectations. And to getting kids to, again, actualize that for themselves and not about you come here to escape, we help you do your work, and then you just go about your day. The goal is to create that independence piece for kids.
Memories.
Thanks so much. So my understanding is there'll be a room or some rooms in the middle school.
Yep.
That's all I kind of got out of the concrete proposals. So a lot of it is about human beings being moved around, but there'll be a room. Okay. Then there's going to be some funding that we get that's going to be for innovation. But we're told that this is going to be shifting, not bringing in new money, shifting resources, not bringing in new money. So I guess I want to figure out all those pieces and how they go together, but I applaud the effort.
So look at the resource as there were 4 teachers working with middle school students that Lewis Public Schools employed out of Longley. We're going to leave 2 there for more intensive work, and we're going to put 2 of them at the middle school. Amanda's going to make sure there's space for them to operate out of as part of the functioning middle school plan. So when we say shifting resources, it's really still this collaborative effort that we've embraced prior, just who's going to be where. And because of the separation from the middle school, we have found that to be more isolating than we want it to be. So that's how those pieces work. The other folks that Julia showed are Tree Street staff that will come into those spaces where the teachers are to help with the relational components with students and hopefully have that out of school connection also, so that there's a bridge between their after school world, their in school world, and their becoming, better people world.
And the piece about the new money, that's
So
just, we don't know where that's going to go.
So the new money around innovation, so that will come into Lewis Public Schools as a fiscal agent. Part of those funds will be used to help compensate. So what Julia does, she'll invoice us for those folks' time, and we make an agreement with them to take that invoice and use the grant funds to pay for it. Yeah. And not just that, but to continue to innovate.
Any further questions? Did you guys have anything else to add? You both turn around at the same time.
I don't think so. Thank you. I'm really excited for this. It feels like we're wrapping around our kids who need support and bringing in, some really great people who can help them.
And it makes sense. Sometimes when we send kids back, there's that slight fear of they've done so well in this external environment, but are they going to be able to manage it back in the home environment? And so this seems like that'll bridge that earlier. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Eames.
And the preventative piece is just so important. So I just thank you so much for thinking this way about how to so we never see them here in a disciplinary hearing. Thank you.
Agenda item number 15 is to discuss and potentially vote on fundraisers that are designed for 21 or older gatherings.
So I thought about a memo or something I could put up beforehand, but I feel like the statement answers itself in the agenda. So what this is. So we've got some groups now. We don't have all the oversight over like boosters, things like that. They can do something off school grounds and things of that nature. But one thing came up recently where school class advisors have had the idea of doing a 21 plus fundraiser for parents. But students may be part of the selling of those tickets or the transferring of, the money for the tickets. So if you did like a dance for adults, but there was also adult beverages available there, 21 only venue. I wanted to bring this to you to say, what are your thoughts? There are a lot of districts nearby that do this. I made some calls. I was surprised to hear that this is something we do all the time, but it is adults only and adults run it and there's no kids there, no kids volunteering at the event, but the kids will be involved in selling tickets for an event that may have these adult, 21 plus environments.
Member Roden?
Thank you. So when I read this, I was trying to think of like what you could possibly be talking about. And and I want to point out that, as someone who I'm actually no longer on boosters, which is really bizarre for me. But as someone who was on boosters, one of the fundraisers that I really wanted to do was like a scratch ticket bouquet to like auction off. And I was told by our athletic director that I couldn't do that because it was considered gambling and we're not allowed to do that. So I was wondering if that's kind of where you were leaning with this. I've also, as a parent, attended a boosters paint night at a restaurant with students, with parents, where parents were drinking. And, I've seen that a couple times over the years and I never thought anything of it. I didn't think that was against the rules where we're out at a restaurant. But again, it was a fundraiser. I don't think I have as a parent, it's more fun to give money for something that's also going to be fun for me, like getting a basket of scratch tickets. That's fun for me, right? Going to a restaurant, having a drink, that's fun for me. So I know I would open up my pocketbook more for fundraisers if I could do something like that. So I'm not opposed to this, but I suppose it depends on what we're talking about. Like, I don't know that like throwing a 21 plus party with kids in attendance sounds like a good idea to me. Okay. Because that's kind of how you made it sound when you said a dance with like underage kids there.
No,
but
no, I said with no
Oh,
kids
okay,
there.
okay.
So kids would not be volunteering at the event. Kids wouldn't be attending the event.
Sure.
They would be
Now,
selling-
boosters,
They'd be selling the
remember,
tickets.
boosters has a degree of separation from us. You get that affiliation obviously because of boosters. But this would be like school employee who are like class of 2000, whatever officers or advisors, I should say, that would host this event. So it's directly school. I would still say no to gambling, just I think unless there's a policy shift, but this would really be something where there's alcohol for adults only.
So can you
Located on
explain
school
sorry.
property?
What?
No,
No, not on
not on
school
school property.
But why would you allow tickets for alcohol, but not tickets for gambling? Yeah. So to me, I mean, they kind of fall in the same category. If we're talking 21 plus, these are 21 plus things. So I don't know why alcohol would be better than a gambling. That they're both like not good. So,
But I guess, so in my mind, well, I'm open to guidance. It's not my call, it's kind of yours, but it got into an area where I was like, there might be some people that are uncomfortable with this, so let's at least have the discussion. I don't think a basket of scratch tickets is the end of the world. I just don't want it to be displayed in the cafeteria and people selling tickets. Like that's, to me, there's the school, not in school crossover. But to sell a raffle ticket for a basket, I would be okay with that. I just don't want it sitting in our cafeteria where there's, the actual items there. And just like if there was alcohol, it would not be on school grounds. So again, I think if there's a degree of separation, I was okay with it, but I was really wanted it in front of you to see what your thoughts were.
So in the past, there's been like school fundraisers like Margaritas or Otto's Pizza or something will have a night where you get a discount, but a portion of that goes back to support the schools and there's alcohol involved or there could be alcohol involved. I don't What is the difference?
So those funds may end up at school, but they are not school sponsored directly. So Margaritas might do it and donate the funds to the school.
But isn't it usually promoted by the
An
school?
association might do it through the Teachers Association, but not through Jake Linglis.
Okay.
Not through our principals per se. We might put a flyer up in the teacher's room or something to that effect, but they still got to go there and do the thing. And yeah,
This feels
I know,
weird.
that's why I wanted to bring it, because again, if you ask me right now, Jake, are you okay with just saying yes to these kinds of fundraisers as long as you have parameters? My answer is yes, I am. But I didn't want to do that with alcohol specifically asked about without your thoughts.
And this would be, so if students are selling the tickets, then we're kind of encouraging or letting kids think that alcohol use is, I don't know, it just seems like there's a line there of if kids are involved in any way at all, we're sort of promoting alcohol use, and that just feels a little weird, but I don't know. I'd have to think it out.
But I don't think it would be the kind of venue you have to drink, it's that you could. I think they're not selling drink tickets. They'd be selling access to the event that would also have like a cash bar or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but again, even that, I was like,
Okay. Counselor Harriman.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't really see a problem with it as long as there is that degree of separation and as long as students who might be, they might be opposed to drinking alcohol, as long as they don't feel compelled to participate in selling the tickets, or that they feel like they're being left out or something by not participating.
Member Bowden.
So if this is something, did Karen want to talk first? Okay. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to share that actually the fundraising policy is on the next policy subcommittee agenda. So, and there's quite a few suggested changes to that policy. So, and this is my bad. Jake and I didn't have this conversation before tonight. He didn't realize it was on the next agenda. So an option might be for the policy subcommittee to look at that, and think in these terms. Just a suggestion.
So I think as far as like saying, yes, we're comfortable with this or no, we're not comfortable with this. What if we were to say like, if somebody has a fundraiser idea that involves somewhere that has drinking or like a scratch ticket basket, could they kind of create a workup for you, like a written plan of what this is and like bring it to us each time to approve it? I mean, is that too much work? I feel like there aren't that many fundraisers. Like it wouldn't be that big of a deal to just bring it to us each time. But that way we would be able to look at it and say like, yeah, I'm comfortable with this, or no, this seems like a really bad idea,
Yeah.
That way, instead of just saying blanketly like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, like, can we just see it each time?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
My only hesitation will be when for whatever reason, this group might be uncomfortable, but you've approved others. And then whose oversight is that? And I bring that up because they had an issue in Oxford, at Oxford Hills. They were doing fundraisers before games that involved at a bar essentially, or tailgating that had alcohol. And then adults were coming into the games having been under the influence, and that created other issues, which I'm not naive in that it doesn't happen some already without a formal fundraiser with drinking before, the home games on a Friday night. We definitely have had to manage some of those situations, but having said that, it's one thing to know that you try to manage a situation versus, well, you allow it on Saturday night for a fundraiser, but you won't allow it on Friday night before the game. And then you get into what are the parameters and then how do we enforce it? And I know it got really sticky in Oxford Hills.
Isn't that where policy comes into play though? Like if you put something into policy, like as long as it is around these parameters and it's approved by the school committee, it should be fine, like that sort of thing.
So currently the policy stands that any fundraising activity is approved by the building administrator, not by the school committee.
Okay.
So there is an opportunity for us to have a further, in the current policy, there's an opportunity for us to further explain that in an administrative procedure designed by the superintendent or us. But I do think that some of the proposed language in an updated policy might benefit this conversation. without getting into details, it talks about not just a short list of some things, but what might qualify as a parent or a booster fundraising versus a student fundraising event.
Member Eames and then member McLaughlin.
Yeah, so as policy chair, I'm looking forward to the next meeting where we can discuss this. And then it does, unless there's some reason that this is going to happen in the next couple of weeks, we could bring it back to this committee once we've
Yeah, I
had
think
that conversation.
we have time to bring it back. The folks that were asking, we're getting well ahead of it and trying to do it the right way. So we have time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just as a general principle, I feel like if the connection is just students selling tickets to something where as part of it, there could be some 21 plus or 18 plus kind of thing. I don't know what else it might be, but I think that seems fine. I mean, I get it could seem strange if they're just selling tickets directly for a drink or for a scratch ticket or something like that. Like, I get that connection maybe feels not quite right. But if it's just part of a general event, I didn't realize that wasn't already allowed. And at the same time, I mean, I could just see if there is a way to address it in policy, that's great. But if we also just adopt something where it's like, well, for the next school year, we take, the suggestion of those types of things come to us. And then after that amount of time, if it's like, no, this is fine, then it can just go forward, approved by building administrators as anything else. But it seems like just a way to try it out. Yeah. That's my one suggestion.
Any further discussion? Do we want to vote on this or do we want to send it to policy?
I feel like there's enough guidance that folks feel like with some parameters, this could be doable and we'll look at it at policy. Does anyone feeling like this is an absolute no or?
I don't feel like it's an absolute no, but could you mention that somebody brought something to you already? Could you go into detail about what they're looking for, like what they're asking for, just so we have an idea? You don't need to say which organization or who.
No,
but-
it was through the high school. It was for the class of, it was an advisor question. Again, well in advance. And I think it was, I'm going to misspeak. It was handed to me on paper first off, and it's in my office, but it was something along the lines of a dance that would also serve alcohol. If people chose to do that. And so I think that was the flag that made people say, can we? And I said, it doesn't seem out of bounds, but let's do this the right way.
And the dance, would it be off school premises?
Yeah, we can't serve alcohol in school grounds. If we could, we'd have concerts on the field on a regular basis and just fund our whole budget. All we need is a lot of plywood and people to lay it down.
So like a dance off premise and absolutely nobody underage is allowed inside this dance if there's alcohol served. Is that what you're saying?
I have to think that you would not be able to have students present for a school committee approved, school affiliated fundraiser. Now.
Sounds like a wedding
boosters-
reception.
I know. Boosters, they have different oversight. And so I guess I want to be thoughtful that there might be two separate sets of rules here. Where like you mentioned, like the paint night and someone's having a glass of wine while they paint and sitting next to them is someone who's painting who is underage is not. I mean, people can decide for themselves if that's responsible or not, but it doesn't feel reckless to me. It just feels like that's something that happens. And so, or the restaurant idea where you have, even the portion of it, margaritas for whatever nights and whatnot. So it can be engaging. It can invite more interest. It could build community in certain aspects, but it has that component to it.
Member Glant.
Yeah, if I remember, maybe I'm off here. Wasn't there a dinner at Governor's at one time? And it was for a club, maybe a travel club. And I know Governor serves beer and wine. So, I mean, you have
That
that.
wasn't school sponsored though.
It wasn't school sponsored.
So it was announced, it was actually governors and governor staff sponsored, and then they made the donation to the program. So you get into that degree of separation where if this is a class advisor, there is no degree of separation. But I think Mr. Agron's in the crowd and helped coordinate that, which was a very
I
nice
did.
gesture.
And the one thing that I will say is we had LRTC kids waiting tables with our staff. They were in the back of the house with our staff. So they were fully, so if alcohol was served, yep, They were there when it was served, so
Again, I didn't see it as a problem, but it was not a school-sponsored fundraiser. It
No,
was
it
a
was
governor's
sponsored.
sponsored fundraiser.
for
And
LLTC.
that- Correct. And so if we want to have a gathering this weekend and do whatever we do
And
and,
donate.
donate the proceeds from whatever that activity is, we're welcome to do so. But when a school advisor is saying, go home and sell this ticket to your parents, where we're gonna do this thing, I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page if that were to happen. Which again, I'm comfortable with it, and I think adults have to make their own decisions, as far as responsibility goes, but. And we should probably have language in the policy subcommittee about things that might be considered gambling. And it might be worth a quick check for us on law, where boosters might be able to do a thing we can't, or boosters can't, but we can. I'm gonna have to do some research.
I just want to say, as far as that goes, I did ask permission about doing that because I thought it would be a really good fundraiser and I was told no. And then I actually saw a parent doing it through Facebook for a sports organization at the high school. And I don't know if it was boosters. I don't know what it was affiliated to, but I felt like, oh, okay, so I can't do that because I asked, but what if I did it if I didn't ask? You know what I mean? And so I think there does need to, and I'm not trying to like encourage bad behavior, but I'm just saying, like, if we had a policy around it, it would be easier for, you or our AD to say, yes, you can do it like this, or no, you can't do this. It's in policy. So, yeah.
Well, and there's some other functions too, like, so a lot of times boosters will put on the banquet. And if the banquet's held at a restaurant, parents can have a drink. I was at a banquet for a spring sport this year, and I was sitting with adults who are good people who were having a beer and really wanted one, but because of my role, chose not to. But I think there's these layers to this that I think we're okay. I just want to be on the same page and not have something pop up and have you say, well, why did you approve that? So we'll look into some legalities around it and share it with policy.
Sounds good. Agenda item number 16 is to receive an update and potentially vote to complete the purchase of 287 Main Street, Lewiston, initiated February 26, 2024, using funds specifically allocated for capital improvements, separate of the recently approved school budget, that were approved by school committee May 20 of 2024, and the city council May 30 of 2024. That's a lot.
So I apologize for the long agenda item, but I thought it important to get it out there that this is not something we just took a vote last week and ran with. We have been looking into this, as you know, since February. We have engaged with legal to do title review, due diligence on the building to look at it from a engineering, what's it going to need perspective. It does need a lot. The purchase price, as you know, is in that $1 million range. I want to be careful with the language I use because we haven't closed on anything and we're looking for a final vote with the school committee to do so. What happens next with the property, if you agree and everything plays out as it should, would be to solidify any concept plan around how would this building be used. But either way, looking at a renovation project at this point, but a decision could be made down the road to do something totally different with that piece of property. What we do know is we have space issues, and if we're going to get ahead of some of these challenges, we need to start right away. So we do have the funds appropriated, just for consumption for others. The funds were, as you know, reallocated on the 20th here and approved by the city council, which is required for reallocation of LCIP funds. And much of what was moved to do this purchase and execute it, should you approve, was from premium or interest on the loan for the expansion. When we got that bond, the timing was quite good for us as far as a banking interest perspective. And that premium played out pretty well. And with that project at its completion, that was a big chunk of the funds that were reallocated. Also reallocated were a number of smaller projects that are completed, but there were funds remaining. So some of those were small, $4,000 in that range, but it closes the book on those prior projects that had funds left in them. So that reallocation, as you know, happened here on the 20th with the city on the 30th of May. And we've just been continuing to work through due diligence, and we are working with legal on the closing process, and they know how to dot all those i's across those t's. But one of the things that we need to dot the I and cross the T on is a formal vote by all of you. And I do have a recommended motion from legal, should the school committee want to take that action tonight.
Member Bowden.
Thank you. So just for the public, could you talk a little more? Because I've been getting a lot of questions about like, well, what are you using it for? And I even saw a question about like, is this going to take away from the tax base in Lewiston, which I don't think it is because it was already owned by a nonprofit, correct? So could you just talk about like what you envision for 287 Main Street? It's just something I haven't felt comfortable talking about because I don't know like exactly what your vision is. So
The vision is that we need to develop a concept as a community. So we have ideas, and I think there are some core pieces. We did send out a survey out and about, and we only have about we have 73 responses to it, but some different ideas that were part of that. And before I jump into that, no, this does not disrupt the tax base because that was a nonprofit building prior, so there were no property taxes connected to that. Now, if it became private, it would generate tax. So this is one of those, it doesn't change the tax base, but it doesn't create tax base. The building does need a fair amount of work. There was some water damage. And the way in which it's set up is medical offices. You have a lot of very small spaces and then some lab spaces that had bigger equipment, which is now have been removed. And so there's definitely work to be done. We'd have to change the layout and things like that. So from an architectural perspective, the building's been through a number of owners. Many years ago, it was a car dealership, and they actually had a massive lift in there that would take vehicles floor to floor as part of their showroom. Then it became, I believe, a retreading plant. And so it was big, wide open spaces. The bones are quite good from a structural integrity perspective. After that, it was a learning facility for, I think, Central Maine Community College at the time, in partner with Central Maine healthcare organizations for medical prep. And then in 1987, they redid a number of things, and eventually it evolved into being lease space for doctors connected to Central Maine Medical Center and also Central Maine Medical Center facilities, imaging and what have you. As COVID arrived, they had the roof thing. They did some vaccine clinics out of there. They more or less stopped using that facility. And I think between shortage of doctors and people moving their offices and really, I think a lot of reasonable fears around COVID that also tied to, well, you had a roof leak here and how are you mitigating everything, and people not going to hospitals for a long time. So ultimately, they looked to sell. And so we did put in a bid and it was accepted. Ideas around the space on the survey include, and this is just an initial kind of round one thing, but daycare space for children of educational staff as an idea. If we did something along those lines, and I'm not saying this is what will happen, but I would see us partnering with a community organization that provides daycare to come have some kind of agreement for space and some priority for teachers in their schedule. And trying to navigate that, I think it could help attract and retain staff. It's an idea, but we'd have to still work it out. Child development services that are coming online in the next 2 or 3 years, at least for us, more so, is going to be a big adjustment. Part of that programming, we will be required to provide services. So as a service center, having a lot of folks who would be looking for that, this could be a hub of services where people could be brought into or could even house, to some extent, some programming around CDS, potentially. Space for community gathering, one idea, and I know we've heard repeatedly, we can't see you, we can't hear you, there's not enough seats. We don't have a meeting space, and I think a school district of our size, the second largest in the state of Maine, the idea that we don't have a consistent meeting space for community is something I'd like to see improve. There's been conversations about pre-K or Head Start-like model. There's been ideas around bringing in some of these special purpose programs that we're starting to build that at McMahon. Could that end up on a floor? We definitely need office space. We've outgrown Dingley. Dingley needs work. I think it's still serviceable, but it does need work. perfect world, we'd find funding to do this work, and then maybe there's a transition year where we can find funding to modify Dingley, or could it be sold? You know, there's lots of possibilities, I think, with the Dingley building, but the basement still needs work. It still does not have centralized air, mechanical perspective from an HVAC perspective. And everything in it is as old as it looks. And so from flooring and carpeting and walls and ceiling that's collapsing, it's definitely got its character, we'll say.
Member Glant?
Yeah, is there a possibility, or and I don't know, that any of that space could be income, like a rented for any other closely linked services that they would be provided to the Lewiston Public Schools?
I didn't mention it, but one of the ideas that's out there is to have a handful, if it fits and if it can be done by way of how the property's set up, to have a handful of like efficiency-like apartments that might house a teacher or some kind of specialized programming, somebody at times. I know we have in the past lost teachers because they can't find housing, or at least not in time to start the school year. So I think there's enough need that we're looking to limit maybe rental space, because the other thing that you have to do if you do that is you have to be a landlord, and that can have its challenges. But we are curious about community space where organizations could rent or lease space within the building to do their own community services that might affiliate themselves with Lewiston Public Schools. So all possibilities.
Yeah, I believe the state of Maine has offices or space that they rent. And I just thought maybe that would be an income that could be a possibility.
I do think we have to look at it as a potential revenue stream. Yes.
Member McLaughlin?
Thanks. Yeah, I do want to be a little more pointed on the narrative, I guess, on what it's going to be used for, because I think the survey I do think is a good idea, just to get a better sense of from folks, other uses because of the size of the space. But I don't want people to have the impression that like, well, we're just going to get it because we could get it and we don't have a specific need for it. We definitely do. And in fact, the part of the issue is that there's so many potential needs for it that the school district has, that choosing which of those needs to put in that space is really what it's coming down to. It's not just for fun, right? I mean, it's, we really need the space for the child development services. We really need the space for the special education services. Just the enrollment in general is growing. And so that creates pressures on, how else can you use the Dingley building, et cetera. So I just want to make a point around that.
So if someone was saying, hey, look, there's 4 floors, what do you want to do? I would say we need offices. And so that's a part of this. 2, we need to do something to support the education learning pathway to get educators into the field, whether it's residency space or training space. We need to have, I don't think that's a full floor, but I think that's space that we need to consider. We need to have a community meeting space that we can hold our own meetings and do it in a reasonable quality, offer that space to other people as appropriate. I am real curious about the daycare for educators. I think that is a huge plus for folks who work for us. So if I was, and CDS piece coming online, if I was to round out, like, that's what I would go for. But I would make those spaces dynamic enough that they could be used for classrooms. If we get to a point that we just see a huge bubble in a grade and we just don't have the physical space, that we look at having a space be flexible enough to accommodate, at least in the short term. Because we are looking at, as you know, enrollment numbers likely increasing very soon. And as a side, I have talked to Scott Brown with the Department of Education, who works specifically with facilities and accommodations for things like enrollment bubbles and, modular buildings and, expediting things. And we've already started that conversation. But if to more narrow that's what I would say. I think the learning centers are just a real big component.
Hey, Member Councilor Harriman?
Yeah, I guess the bottom line is that Lewiston Public Schools need space overall, and this building offers a lot of space. It's the way it's built it's very easy to, I believe all of those internal walls are they're not load bearing, so they can all be just taken out and reconfigured however we need. And it just seems like a really good investment in the future of Lewiston Public Schools.
And just to reiterate what you said, this process started back in February. Some media had reached out today with questions about why this wasn't more transparent during the budget process, and does this impact the budget, or did the budget impact this? And it's just the timing. They're two separate things, and I think making that very clear, because there was a lot of commotion around the budget, is really important.
I don't know if I should say this publicly, but I'm going to, but as they went through the title work, they're resolving a lien that doesn't exist, but we don't have evidence of that. So part of where we're at time-wise is actually waiting for that lien to be cleared from an existing debt that on paper doesn't exist, but we want to be sure.
Any member McLaughlin?
If I could just make a couple more points. One, yeah, just on that funding piece as well related to the budget, I do think it's worth stating again, what you already said, which is this funding can't be used for operational costs and to cover other things in the budget. So I think that is important to say again. And just another quick thing is I do think it would be great to settle what it's going to be used for as quickly as possible. I mean, just one, so there isn't a vacant building sitting there, but also just because of the various needs of the school and the time involved in construction, that it is important to get started. But yeah, overall, I just wanted to say as well, what a huge opportunity this is. I mean, I think everyone sees in the news the tens of millions of dollars that other districts have to spend on new buildings because you know, there's a lot of different parts of the state that have growing enrollments or other needs that lead to, you know, new building requirements. And it's huge costs. And the fact that we have a decent shell, if nothing else, is actually a huge step forward. It's in a good location for community needs. And it's really exciting. I mean, it's great that this has so far worked out, and hopefully will continue to work out. So I will be supporting it.
Member Bowden?
I guess you're looking for a vote, so can I make a motion? Oh, you have motion language.
I have language that came from
Okay.
legal, just to kind of covers all bases, but I also don't know if.
You want to hold on the motion? Do you want to wait a minute on the motion so we can open up for public comment? Sure. All right, we will open it up for public comment.
Matthew Legren, Ward 4. I have a question. What does the building inspection report read for this building? I ask because online I've seen that the roof has failed, that there is black mold inside the building. There may be hazmat from the dealership that was there and the tire resurfacing. And I've also heard that there are some questions on the structure of the building. I know when my wife and I bought our house, we looked at 2 other houses, one of which, when we had our building inspection report come in, saved us from a nightmare. The second part is, what is the estimated cost to put this building back into service? It's $1 million to buy it, but how much to put it back into service?
Responder. Okay. Member Bowden. Were there any other members of the public that wanted to speak? I can't see beyond the pedestal if there's anyone over there now. Okay. Member Bowden.
Yeah, I don't have the language in front of me, but I guess if Jake wants to read that language.
So just as a side, when I've mentioned prior due diligence, it's just a phrase, but it's due diligence is having engineers and specialists go into the building and check on things like roof structure, mold, water damage, equipment, HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and potential, you know, if we want to use this for classrooms, could we? Yes, you'd have to remediate, you'd have to build and renovate, but yes. And so we won't have a cost until we have a full concept plan. But my estimation is anywhere from $10 to $14 million to renovate the entire building. But again, we want to seek funding as much as possible that doesn't impact locally. But having the property will allow us to pursue those dollars. Not having it, we have limited grounds to pursue. So And the motion language, you want me to just say it and then, okay, so the motion is to authorize the superintendent on behalf of the school committee to take all actions and execute all documents required to complete the purchase of 287 Main Street, Lewiston, for a purchase price of $1 million as provided in the contract for the sale of commercial real estate dated February 26, 2024, as amended with Central Maine Healthcare.
So moved.
So much easier that way, isn't it?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Agenda item number 17, to review and potentially vote on the second reading of the following policies listed under agenda letters A through H.
So we did the first reading on these several meetings ago. There was no change from the first reading, just on the agenda for second reading this time.
Member Bowden?
Ready to go. I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the second read of A through H.
There a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? It's unanimous. Agenda item number 18 is a report from the school committee chair. I don't have anything to report, but this may be outdated just because our meetings have been sort of dominated by the budget. So I haven't had a chance to ask previously, but I had received 3 different parents had reached out regarding the access to Farwell Playground and where that was at, if it will be opened back up. So I don't know if it has been opened back up, but when I received this several weeks ago, they were concerned about if Farwell would be opened up. So I don't know if you can touch on that.
Bill may have more detail, but the Farwell Playground is actually behind the high school right now. It's been delivered, if you will, and we have scheduled installation, but they are booked out until Bill will have more detail. And remember, all these installations have to be to spec to ensure safety and warranty and all of those things. Because otherwise I'd go over there and dig holes and just stand it up myself. Bill tells me I can't do that, but trust me, I tell him I can.
Weekend, yeah, right, weekend projects. It's not just Farwell, but Farwell, we did remove some structures over there. And so those actually, some of those things came down. We're trying to get it removed because there's some concrete block, like footers that held them in there. So that should be happening within the next few weeks. But other schools too, McMahon, we were doing some bridge work there on a structure and having something installed new there. And then we were going to be removing some stuff at Longley because that had kind of gotten past its life. So that was going down. So there's multiple schools. We're trying to do it. And kind of, you got that 9-week rush that you can get a lot of this stuff done in the summer. So we're trying to get it done. So it's up and going, but I guess that's not a real good date, but work is happening.
It's happening. And just a question of my own, I drove through Montello the other day, following a deer. And I noticed that the track there's not even much track left. There's like grass growing out of it. Is there any plan to make that a track again, or is it just sort of neglected and
Yeah, and that's kind of a city thing because sometimes they'll maintain that with like a big mulch mower and they'll go around the edges to kind of clean that up. They did that a few years ago. So I don't know any plan of doing anything with that track. And again, that would be something that we would talk about with the city.
Okay, thank you.
But there is new playground equipment there and there should be some basketball hoops going in pretty soon there too.
The swings didn't have actual the swing sets were there, but no swings on them when I was there.
Yeah, and we've gotten new swings, and so we've got to look to get those installed because we had to get whole new structures for those.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 19 is a report from the superintendent.
So I feel like a lot has happened, but we haven't tapped the brakes at all yet. So hopefully we can do that soon. Bill's working hard with our special ed folks on making some adjustments to McMahon because to properly provide services, we have to modify some of the bathrooms. We had an idea that was coming. It's part of the work that we thought we might have to do. So that takes a lot of work, even though you're only adding 3 bathrooms and a changing table to properly provide for students. It goes through the whole permitting process and it needs a print and it needs bids and all of that stuff. So we're going through that process and we think they might start as early next week on that work. The budget was passed. And so I think lots of people took a sigh of relief. I didn't, for what it's worth. I'm already thinking about next year and I think what will be a challenging budget cycle next year, but I think if we're smart and we're intentional, I think we can bring a reasonable budget to our community, and we need to do that. So that will be the direction I'm taking. And hopefully that will all play out a little more quickly next spring, but we'll see. But I do think voters were loud and clear about their concern on the tax base. And I think that we'd be remiss if we're not thinking of that as we bring the next budget forward. So we're already thinking along those lines and in that lens.
Agenda item number 20, report from the city council rep.
Thank you. So I'll touch on a few things. At our last meeting, we approved a renaming of the Randall Road softball fields to the Ron Moran Fields. Ron tragically was killed during the shootings on October 25th. And he had a lot of connection with the, with softball. So that was a really appropriate renaming of that field. We have a meeting. Our next meeting is tomorrow. A few things are at 6 p.m. There's a joint workshop between the city council and the planning board talking about the homeless shelter overlay district, which currently restricts any new shelter to a small part of downtown. So we'll be talking about whether it's appropriate to expand that to other areas of town. We have, let's see, there are a couple other things here. Oh, there's an update on the installation of the public restrooms that were approved as part of the capital improvement plan. So there'll be an update on the progress on those. There was also a $60,000 grant that came from the Maine State Office of Tourism to help with the LA Balloon Festival. So that's really exciting. It really gave a good boost to their fundraising efforts and should help make that even more successful. And I think that's all I've got right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes.
So just real quick, it crossed my mind. On the 31st of July, a number of us have been invited to go to the Sea Dogs game because they're doing a Maine edition Lewiston Strong dedication game. So they'll have like different hats and uniforms and whatnot. And they've invited a number of us to go down to that. If that's something of interest to you, please let me know. There's limited seating, but we've put it out to some staff, and kind of a neat thing to be honored by them.
Thank you. Agenda item number 21 is an update from subcommittees. Have any subcommittees met? I don't think so. Nope. Agenda item number 20. Nope. Agenda item number 22, school committee community announcements. Member Bowden.
Thank you. I just think I think that we should, because we haven't yet recognized the student that passed away and maybe have a moment of silence. So I don't know if you want to say anything, Jake.
I will try. We don't have all the details of what unfolded. Certainly is an investigation underway. But Sahal Maridi was shot and killed last night outside of his home, and visited the family today. They were very welcoming, but they're crushed. They're trying to process all of it. I think we all are. Sahal was working at Mears as a youth mentor, had done some different activities with kids and was committed to that work. He had a job washing dishes here locally. He was on a pathway to graduation, would have graduated next spring, and yeah, too young, taken too soon. So
any other community announcement? Member Gallant?
Not so much of an announcement, but a question. Does Lewiston, and I think I last year I heard that there's a backpack program in August. And if the community or us want to be involved, do we have any information about that?
Yes, I can share. The backpack event is scheduled for August 22nd. I believe it will be from 3 to 6, and Natasha Turcott is our McKinney-Vento liaison and family engagement coordinator for the district. And she can be, she's the point person for that. She's coordinating that. I know she's getting some things together and looking to put some things out. She's been working with some community organizations and in conjunction with the store next door. So I do believe more information will come, but it will be August 22nd at Longley.
You may have also heard locally, United Way does a big backpack event, and they're publicizing that. So if you're curious about that, Jolene Bedard from the United Way of Androscoggin County. Wider Androscoggin, I'm just kidding, sorry. Jolene at the United Way can help you with that. But they do a great job with gathering things, and a lot of the things that they will gather end up in our schools also.
Thank you. Any other community announcements? Agenda item number 23, future agenda items. Member Bowden?
Yeah, just what I touched on in the very beginning when we were doing the consent agenda. I just would love an update to see where we're at as far as our numbers going into this year with staff and potentially students as well, if we're seeing a big increase this year. I just think that'd be a good thing for us to know.
Member McLaughlin?
Yeah, I would just bring up again something, I think it was almost 3 months ago now that I brought up, but just with all the budget process, just if we could have a conversation about sort of the 3-year outlook of the budget, while we have now a small window before the next year's budget process starts again, I would find that very valuable.
Member Eames?
Since we're talking about that, I would really have appreciated getting those PowerPoints that you share at the meetings an hour or two ahead of time, if it's ever possible. But if not that, at least after, because I would like to be able to go back to look at the numbers and the particulars, and I never got a copy of any of those. So I don't know if that's a mistake on somebody's part or whether, so you thought we were getting them and we never did,
No,
but I just want you to know that we never did. And I never did. And I would really like to have had them.
Yeah,
So next year,
we can do that.
thank you.
I'd ask you to remind me though, too, in case I forget. I'm happy to share them. Especially when we're meeting Monday, Wednesday, those are built as we go and we add to them. So, but I'm happy to share them. And to be honest, I'll have this year's if you want it. Some of it may look clumsy because I keep it and keep adding, including the city pieces. So.
I don't know about others, but I would very much appreciate having them for this year and in future. Thanks.
Member Glant?
Yes, if we could get information on when a lot of this housing that's going on in Lewiston, when that's going to be done, so that we could possibly project an increase of students in the Lewiston public school system. I think that would be, I think it would behoove us to have, to be proactive a little bit as to what the outlook will be based on the increased housing that we expect to have.
Yeah, we could pull some things together. I know cities talk about it pretty openly and it's been in the paper, but we can sit and look at it. The hard thing for us is we can assume who's going to move into spaces or some kind of ratio, but we don't know who will actually move into those spaces. But it's between mixed use and market rate or a lot not sub-market rate. Yeah, but I think it's definitely similar to, but I think the number I had in my head last was 472 potential new units in 3 years.
Any other future agenda items? Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by member Bowden, seconded by member Gallant. All in favor? School committee adjourns at 7:20 p.m.